Welcome back to the show. This is the Zero to Here podcast. That's our new jingle. I'm your host, Denny Dumas. On today's show, this is a very exciting one for me. I've been trying to get someone in the cannabis space for a little while. I was introduced to Abby Randhawa through a mutual friend, Dr. Sodi, for all your eyewear needs. Abby, super knowledgeable guy in the space. He kind of goes through all the benefits that CBD oil has and how he's seen it help people in his life, how it's helped him, how it's helped his pet. Very cool to hear a little bit of the science behind the plant and how it could potentially help you too. Give it a listen. It's a super, super interesting one, and let me know your feedback. Welcome to the show, Abby. Thanks for joining us in this small but quaint condo here in Burnaby. I'm excited for this one. I've obviously we've been messaging back and forth for a little while, and I am pretty pumped to finally put it together here.
Awesome. I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah. Can we start just by maybe summarizing, to your knowledge, like what's going on right now in Canada with cannabis? So it was legalized in the fall. Well, in BC, not in Canada, right?
No, it was Canada.
It was Canada.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's legal nationally.
But it is extremely hard to get licenses.
Yeah.
So It seems like cannabis sales have gone down, even though it's been legal for the last 8 months.
There's a couple of things. I think, getting a license is definitely a difficult piece. But at the same time, there's price points is a big thing right now. You're paying about $16 a gram, where before, you go to these illegal dispensaries and you're paying $10 a gram. And ultimately, the stuff that's coming off the street is significantly better than what you're getting from these licensed producers. And that will change, as these licensed producers get their cost per gram down and they get more efficient and automation comes into play. They'll come back down to that black market level where they'll bring their grams. I think the price will be around that $6 to $8 a gram.
Okay.
Yeah. And the quality will get better as well.
What does it mean to be legal, I guess, in Canada right now?
Yeah. So being legal means an ACMPR, which basically is access to cannabis for medical purposes. And that being a licensed producer, you have to go through these stringent policies and meet every single regulation that they want you to meet, and being grown locally in Canada. So that doesn't allow any importation of any cannabis products. You must have, your farm and your extraction, and everything has to be done in Canada. They recently changed the laws now where they're trying to streamline the licenses, where prior you could actually apply for a license off an idea or off a business model, which isn't necessarily the smartest thing, in my opinion. But now they've transitioned it to where you can say, hey, our facility is done. We've got the facility. They'll send someone over. They check it out. You get your license pretty quick.
Are a lot of because there was hundreds and hundreds of stores in Greater Vancouver?
Mm-hmm.
Carl would know.
Lots of illegal stores, everywhere.
Are lots of them right now trying to go through that process of getting legal?
Yep.
Because a lot of them are just closed down, right?
Just recently, they were court ordered, from my understanding, due to the fact that they were 300 meters within a school or a community center.
Okay.
So just recently, they shut down a bunch of longstanding dispensaries like Weeds, Lotus Land, and some others have now shut down and court ordered to be shut down.
Yeah. I don't know much about the system behind what Canada is trying to do with cannabis, but is it trying to mimic the the liquor system right now in terms of private sales? So it has to be like a registered vendor that you're purchasing product from?
That is correct. It's going basically through the liquor board, the BCLDB. All of the product has to go through them And then ultimately they allowed it to be sold in legal retail dispensaries. And I believe at the moment there's only one online site in BC that you can purchase it from, which is the government entity. So
It's ridiculous.
I believe right now in all of BC, I think there's 11 or 14 legal dispensaries. That's it.
How many
In
of those
all
are
of
in
BC?
Vancouver?
That's a good question. I'm going to say a handful. The first one that ever opened when we legalized wasn't even in Vancouver.
It was Kelowna, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had a big lineup. It was a big party. But what about Vancouver? Right? So
Carl drove down for that opening.
did you actually?
No, Danny's a liar.
Would you classify this as progress, or is this a step back kind of thing?
It depends. It depends on your perspective and how you look at it. You may say it's a step backwards for procuring cannabis, but you may say it's a step forward for research and data.
Sure.
It's finally going to allow us to understand this plant, and it's got there's more than just THC, which I think we're going to definitely talk more about it, which is CBD. So there's more than just THC. There's over 100 different chemical compounds, some that people are not very familiarized with, and others that are. Yeah.
There's over 100.
There's over 100.
How many of them are used commonly?
THC and now CBD.
So just 2.
Yeah, but there's over 100.
Is it because they're not, the other 98 are not, haven't been researched in terms of effects or what?
They're found in specific strains, so specific genetics and varietals. So they're not at the abundance levels of THC and CBD. Majority of plants have, THC and CBD, but you won't find a lot of these other cannabinoids. There's CBDV, CBG, THCV, CBC. I can keep going. But this is part of moving forward with data and research, and now finally allowing it, to get clinical studies. It was so hard to get clinical studies done before.
So do you think in the future we might see another type of CBD?
Yes, there will be beyond CBD. There will be combinations from terpenes and different cannabinoids that all have their own therapeutic benefits. So it's, THC, I believe, is the only one that's psychoactive. And that's the one that gets all the attention. But CBD, which is non-psychoactive, can still give you a lot of the similar benefits without getting you high. And, there's CBG, which might be a stronger anti-inflammatory than CBD. There's THCV, which is a very, very unique and very rare cannabinoid, but it's actually like an antagonist to THC. So it'll actually curb your appetite. It will regulate your blood sugar levels. You may even lose some weight on THCV. So it's very, very interesting as we go down this path and start learning more about these chemical compounds and understanding what they can do.
I guess now's a good time to talk about differences between the two common, obviously, THC and CBD.
Yep. The differences between the two, I think the biggest difference is definitely the psychoactive part. THC will, potentially induce anxiety is a big one for people as we keep trying to breed them and get the highest levels of THC, and that seems to be a huge thing in the industry. But ultimately, it's the terpenes that really give you the characteristic of your high. So that's a very interesting thing. Is terpenes are found in lemons, which is limonene, pinene, and there's also 100 different terpenes as well. So the very interesting thing is when you start doing these combinations, and that's why when you smoke a specific strain, you're like, hey, this one gives me energy. Hey, this one gets me sleepy. Hey, this one gives me clarity. Like there's so many different ways that these receptors bind, and these terpenes play a part, including the cannabinoids. But THC is the one that really is the only psychoactive one. The rest are non-psychoactive.
So again, maybe this is ignorant comment to make, but is it, how are different strains produced? Is it just the way they grow, or is it what type of soil they grow in? Is it, I don't know the answer to that.
I like to kind of use an analogy as similar to dog breeding. Bulldogs never existed. That took hundreds of years of breeding, a big dog and a small dog, and eventually you got this English bulldog. And it's the same thing with plants and cannabis plants. It's taking a specific strain, breeding it with another strain, and then, over time, you start realizing that, hey, it's changing, it's adapting, it's evolving. One thing that's really, really sought after is land races. So really, really old strains that come from Africa or China or in Nepal. And these land races have been around for 5,000 plus years, if not even longer. And they're very, very pure. And they're very, very rare. So as it evolves, as geneticists get involved, and we get into cell tissue and cell culture, you can start doing some amazing things with the plant.
And at that point, it's just trial and error.
Yeah, R&D, money. It comes down to, breeding, whether it's you're looking for specific THC levels. Like THC back in the 90s and 80s, I don't think there was any plants that were over 20%. Now I think we're getting up to 40. So it's just over time and selective breeding allows us to really evolve the plant to, whichever way you really want to take that direction in.
Why do you think the plant has had such a bad name? And I guess what about it is changing now that it's becoming legal?
If you go all the way back, and it's kind of just previously talked about, was Reefer Madness. The campaigns they came out with were absurd. They literally said that marijuana made you go crazy. It made you want to break things, and it's like, what are you talking about? What people don't really understand is why hemp got outlawed. Well, why did hemp get involved? Hemp didn't get you high. It was just it's an agricultural plant. And if you go back down in the history, you'll understand that hemp was really outlawed due to the fact that it can be used in every single use case that you can potentially think about. Like there's 50,000 use cases today that you can use hemp for. And it really was DuPont. DuPont was creator of and the use of cotton, created paper. People don't realize, the Declaration of Independence, it was drafted on hemp paper. Hemp was used everywhere. It was used for, and even today, it can be used for plastics. It can use for, it can use for clothing. It can use for hempcrete. There's so many use cases for it. And it's sustainable. But then you take away cotton, you take away plastic. You take it all these other industries that are multi-billion-dollar industries. Essentially, it's the system, that you're fighting against, and cannabis also falls into the same place.
And when was that happening? You say that was happening in the 80s, that it kind of took on this. People were saying that it made you crazy, and it made
no. This is 30s. This is black and white TV, 1930s, 1940s. Similar to the prohibition days of alcohol. It's all around that same time frame. Even with hemp. Hemp was outlawed exactly. Cannabis sativa was all outlawed in, I think, 1934, around the 30s.
And what's changed recently that now it's becoming legal in a lot of North America? Is it just research? Justin Trudeau really pushed it on his political campaign. I think that was one of his things that he liked to advocate, that, hey, we're going to legalize cannabis. And I think as we start going down the path, we're starting to see that there are some real truth behind this plant. It's got a lot of medicinal properties behind it. And living in Canada, and we're starting to see this opioid crisis, and with fentanyl and so forth, where there's other alternatives. You don't need to go down taking Oxycontin or painkillers. And Oxycontin is ruining people's lives, not just young teenagers. It's doctors, lawyers. It's people with professional careers who go for back surgery, and next thing you know, they're addicted to opiates, and now their whole life has gone down the drain because of what? Because of opium, which is also a plant that has hundreds of years been
concentrated and adapted to levels of, heroin in a pill. And cannabis, I think people are starting to understand, and now we can push away from the stigma and understand that, no one's ever died from marijuana. No one's ever died from cannabis. So it's just a matter of time as people start opening up. And there still is a stigma, even with hemp. You talk about CBD and you go, well, it's non-psychoactive. It's his brother. It doesn't get you high. There still always will be a stigma, and that will take years to get the awareness out there.
Do you believe it's addictive?
Marijuana or hemp or CBD? I guess reports have shown that marijuana can be addictive, but there's also contradicting reports or conflicting reports saying, no, actually you can't. Interesting enough, the World Health Organization did a 200 plus page study on CBD in 2017. And it explicitly states that CBD, you can't build a tolerance to, you can't get addicted to, and you can't overdose. And that's from the World Health Organization. And I think they've explicitly stated just recently that it should be decriminalized globally. So they're huge advocates on allowing CBD to be, just a over the counter, available over the counter. Like, it shouldn't be restricted. It shouldn't be illegal.
To me, that sounds pretty unique because it seems like a lot of drugs you do build a tolerance to, where CBD you do not.
Yeah, and there's anecdotal evidence out there. Myself, I've been taking CBD for about 3 to 5 years. I'd say about 3 years. I don't know if you can build a tolerance to it, but I like to take about a 3 or 4 day break after about a month. And I don't know if it just gives my endocannabinoid system a break, and then it just kind of gets a breather, and then it kind of gets recharged. But there's a lot of, I spend a lot of time on Reddit and online communities, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence saying that, hey, you can build a tolerance to this. So maybe there just isn't enough data and research to really back that up just yet.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. What are the advantages of CBD? What are the effects of it? What do people use it for?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's unfortunate that it kind of gets marketed as snake oil, because hey, it helps with everything from sleeping to cancer to recovery, and until we get more data and research, a lot of the published papers are mostly in mice and animal studies. But what can it help with? It may help with sleep. It may help with recovery. It may help with Parkinson's, autoimmune disorders. From my personal experience for myself, I noticed that my shoulders are looser throughout the day. My shoulders are kind of rolled back. I'm less stressful. I have more focus. And everyone's experience is a little bit different depending on what you're looking for. If you don't have any issues at all and you're just looking for overall wellness, you just need 5 or 10 milligrams. You don't need a whole lot. If you're a professional athlete and you're competing, say as an MMA fighter, which is huge with CBD now, they'll use the topicals, and they'll take about 50 to 100 mg just to bring down their inflammation, because they're putting their body through some severe torture.
What are the ways to use it? You mentioned topical.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff coming out. I've had a chance to sample a bunch of stuff from a trade show that our colleagues had brought back. I've seen ingestibles. The real first product line that came out was a tincture. So you just kind of take it like an eyedropper, and you take it underneath the tongue, and you just kind of leave it there and let it sit for 30 seconds to a minute for better absorption. I've seen sprays. I've seen the vapes. The vapes are very interesting as they have faster bioavailability. So they can get into your bloodstream really quick and give you a reaction of whether it's that overall feeling of well-being. And then I personally think you're going to see it in every single thing you can imagine, from cereal to chocolates, who knows, maybe even toilet paper. I don't even know. They're gonna go crazy with this stuff. They're, as a true marketer and a branding, specialist, you'll do whatever it takes. You'll put it in anything. I do know I've seen CBD toothpicks. I've seen toothpaste. Beverages is going to be huge. So topicals from cosmetic care, any cosmetic care you can think of, and then pet care. It's really my intro to CBD was through pets. That was my first real what, really? And I saw something amazing happen in front of my eyes. It was actually my friend's dog. He had a Doberman. He was 11 years old, and it had all these tumors on it, and his skin was changing, and he was walking around, and he walked around really slow, and you could just tell that his health was degrading, and quite drastically. And he lives close to me. He lives a block away from me, and I woke up one day, and I'm just drinking a glass of water early morning, and I look outside the window, and I see his dog, could barely walk, all these tumors, and he's running around like a pup. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going on? I was like, so I run out there and I'm like, hey, what happened to your dog? Right? Like he's running around like he's like a puppy right now. And you could barely walk the other day. And he goes, hey man, I got him on these CBD cookies. And after 3 days, this is what happened.
3 days, that's it?
3 days. And, so I was very much intrigued. I was like, oh, that's amazing. And this is 3+ years ago. And what was even more amazing was after the next, I see this guy very often as he lives close to me. Every week, at first I was like, am I seeing this right? I feel like his tumors are getting smaller. After about 2 months, they had shrunk at least 70%. And I'm talking football-sized tumors. So that's when I was just like, whoa. And, just seeing that was just I was completely amazed. I was like, oh, I didn't even know about CBD. And so that was kind of really my first experience, not firsthand, but just visually seeing it on a pet. And I was really, really amazed. And then after that, things kind of just went crazier from, about my other friend's dog. He had an 8-year-old pit bull, and it started having seizures. They took it into the vet, and they go, hey, your dog has an enlarged heart. He's going to live he's got about 3 to 6 months to live. And he was spending $2,000 a month on his diet and giving his dog acupuncture. And I think I may have mentioned CBD or someone else had told him, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to give him CBD. And in 48 hours, his dog stopped having seizures and lived 3 years longer than expected. And that's when I was just, and so and it just started, all these things were happening so quick. This happened in 6 months or less. And, I got even more intrigued. So then I went on my own journey to try finding some CBD. So I went to my local illegal dispensary, which is now actually converted to a legal dispensary.
One of the few.
Yeah. So it was quite nice. It was the same owner, and I had a great chat with him. He's like, hey, I remember you. And so, so I went and I bought some CBD capsules, and I was, just intrigued. I'm like, okay, well, hey, you hear about all these great benefits from, it helps with recovery, helps with joint pain, it makes you feel better. So I was like, okay, so I tried some of these capsules. I think there were 10 mg, and, took one, didn't really feel much. Took another, didn't really feel much. I think I ended up finishing the whole bottle in 2 weeks, but I didn't really feel anything. So I was like, oh, maybe it is snake oil. Maybe this thing doesn't do anything. I didn't know. So I kind of gave up on it. And then I think I went back, and they had a tincture. I tried that. I still didn't feel anything. And then they had a high CBD strain, so flower. And I had a chance to try that. And I kind of had this feeling of elation after smoking. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, maybe this is what everyone's talking about. Maybe this is that feeling of well-being. So still, I wasn't fully on board. It really was when my dog hit 13. So I used to have a pit bull, and when he hit 13, one day he stopped eating his food. He completely stopped eating his food, and we're like, oh, that's kind of weird. And the second day, he still wasn't eating food. He was only drinking water. So we took him to the vet, and he had a shoulder problem, so he used to limp a lot. And we used to give him all the painkillers, these really light painkillers. And so after 2 days of not eating, we took him in, and the vet goes, hey, his kidneys are 80% done. And it was those low dosage painkillers that basically almost took out his kidneys. And what I didn't realize is, animals are so smart that he was flushing his kidneys. So he just drank water for 3 days. And after 3 days, we thought he was going to die, but he was able to flush his kidneys by just drinking water for 3 days. And on the fourth day, he started eating food again. Obviously, we took him off the painkillers. And my friend, same guy with the Doberman, was like, hey, like, get your dog on CBD, get your dog on CBD. And I asked him where he purchased it. And he got his dog cookies, but I noticed that they had these tinctures, and they had one for cats, dogs, and one for horses. And I was like, I'm going to get the one for horses, right? I was like, get my bang for my buck. So I get the one for horses, and I give it to him, and I get him off the painkillers. And guess what? After 2 days, the limp's gone. Yeah, and he's walking along. He's all good. He's eating his food, and he lived till 15.
Crazy,
right? So I don't know if CBD prolonged his life. What I do know is it definitely helped his shoulder. So that was really my real true intro to CBD. And how I really got fascinated about it. And even then, I wasn't in the industry. I wasn't working. I was just kind of more like just on the outskirts understanding. I don't think anyone even knew much about CBD at that time, 3+ years ago, as it is where it is today.
Do you have any stories related to humans on that side? In just doing some really brief research, you see these claims about like, and when they use the word cure, I'm a little bit hesitant, but like, sure, maybe I believe it could help cancer, could help Alzheimer's, but when they use the word cure, is there any factual evidence that shows that it can cure?
Yeah, I think good point. We have to be very careful in how you use the wording with CBD. When it first came to the market on the e-commerce platforms, people thought it was going to cure the cancer, and people were marketing it that way, and people were spending thousands of dollars. And guess what? It doesn't cure cancer. They were dying. Now, I've read some papers where taking CBD with chemotherapy treatment is 3 times more effective. And I read that on a publication on PubMed. So, with humans, coming back to humans, now I've seen, and I've gotten firsthand testimonials. It's anecdotal. People say it's placebo. It's not a placebo. I've had enough people tell me testimonials. I've seen it do amazing things to friends and families, from getting people off anxiety pills to people telling me, hey, my back pain's gone. Hey, I'm sleeping like I slept in high school. Hey, my recovery's better. I've gotten that feedback. So now I can get behind it officially, even though we're not there with the data and research, but anecdotally, I'm all behind it. I've seen a change in myself. I've seen a change in my mom. She has, minor arthritis, and she's like, hey, like, I take CBD and that arthritis is gone. So anecdotal evidence is more than enough for myself right now. And I think you go online and you'll see testimonials from tons of people, and there's right now today, I think there's over 20,000 publications on cannabis that you can go and Google and find right now today. In your lifetime, you wouldn't be able to read it all if you went through all of those. So there is data and research. It's very limited. It's very expensive, and it's very difficult to get done because of regulations.
Yeah.
But now that the door's opening and legalization has started in Canada, and we can start getting these trials done and getting more answers, I think that's fantastic.
So you talk about the few animal stories that you shared, and that they were almost immediate results. It was like 2-3 days of eating CBD cookies or whatever it was. And then you use your own story of using the capsules for a couple of weeks, not really feeling anything. Yeah. When did that change in terms of, obviously you're super into how impressive this plant can be. Yes. But when did that change for you personally?
Yeah. So
and is that common for people to start using it and not really feel any different?
Yeah, it is. Most definitely. I think taking a step back and just talking more about the plant, there's over 100 different cannabinoids in a plant. Everyone's very familiar with THC, the one that gets you high. Then there's CBD, but there's almost 100 different other ones. And each of them have their own therapeutic benefits. A lot of the CBD that people are taking is just that single CBD compound. Now, when you take something which is called a full spectrum, you get the whole plant. So they're extracting the whole plant, and now you're getting terpenes, cannabinoids, THC and CBD, and trace amounts of some others. And there's something called the entourage effect. And what the entourage effect is, essentially all these cannabinoids are working synergistically and enhancing each other's properties with the terpenes. And it can be, and has starting to show, to be much more effective than just a CBD isolate. Right now in the United States, there's only one legal FDA-approved CBD product. It's called Epidiolex. And it was the first one that was approved and used for children for epilepsy. But ultimately, that product is just an isolate. The cannabis plant is a pharmacy in itself. So it's like a multivitamin, right? Like you take a multivitamin to get that full spectrum, right? You don't want to just get potassium or magnesium. You want everything. And it's very similar to a cannabis plant.
There's only one product in the States that is legally allowed to use CBD? Is that what you said?
Yes. One product called Epidiolex that's produced by GW Pharmaceuticals, who has gone through clinical trials, and I think they're UK based, and done all the the due diligence and spent lots of money in getting clinical trials, and the FDA has only approved that single.
But there are many other CBD products that are used and sold.
Yes, there's probably over 10,000 different brands in the United States, with another 500 to 1,000 coming up every month.
So what's the advantage of that company going through all that red tape to be FDA approved?
I think that just allows them to, one, getting that legal stamp, and doctors being allowed to actually prescribe it and allowing people to get it from an actual pharmacy. That's the only drug that you can actually go to a pharmacy and, get over behind the counter, which is Epidiolex.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Carl, where do we go from here? Jeez.
That's a lot of information.
That's a lot of information. Where do I want to go here? I guess in terms of using it, what's the right way to use it, and how much are you supposed to take per dose? Let's use really generalized terms in terms of like maybe someone who's suffering with a little bit of back pain or neck pain or something like that, or just for overall health.
Sure. Dosaging is actually quite tricky with CBD. I think originally they thought that you needed about 10 mg per 100 pounds.
Okay.
As a starting base. However, more and more research is showing us that that's not the case. It doesn't matter about your size or your weight. It's really how your receptors work and how it interacts with your brain and cognition and your spinal cord and CB1 receptors, and really gets kind of into the complexity of how just as humans work. But if I had to say, if you were a first time user and have back pain, what I usually recommend is you start with 10 mg, whether it's in the morning or afternoon or night. You can take it twice a day and see if it helps, right? So you almost want to listen to your body. If you don't feel anything, then you can increase. You don't feel anything, and increase again. You can go all the way up to 100 mg a day. The only real side effect you're going to get from taking 100 mg a day, you might get a little bit drowsy. You might fall asleep. That's it. There's no other, you're not going to, hallucinate. You're not going to, go crazy or anything like that. The only thing you'll get a little bit drowsy. So
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So it's, you can go ahead and drive and run more vehicle. It's not psychoactive. So Yeah, usually depending on your ailments. I know for like anxiety, you don't need a whole lot. You can start with a low dose, but you need to adjust accordingly to yourself. You need to listen to your body and understand that even though you may not feel anything, and everyone has a different kind of experience, but at times you may not notice it's working, and then you'll be in an interaction and you go, wait a second, I'm usually not this calm. Oh, usually I have pain in that scenario. And that's when you're kind of like, it is working subtly. It's working there. And that's just kind of how your endocannabinoid system works.
Denny, did you notice any of that? Like when you started taking it, did it help at all? Or were you just not consistent with it?
That's probably yeah, I wasn't.
And some people do kind of have an initiation. I noticed some people in rare cases can take up to, I wouldn't say rare, but 7 to 10 days before they actually it's a work day. I'm in work mode right now. And others can take up to 30. So I think you want to take it consistently for at least up to a month and do some trial and error and see how it works. And take it different times throughout the day. Majority of them are used with carrier oils like MCT oil. And I wasn't very familiar with MCT oil, but triglycerides actually get your brain working. So if you take it at night, some people might not be able to sleep. So, you want to really play around. You might take it 2 hours before you sleep. You might take a lot less at night. So I've been playing around with that myself. And there's the odd time where I'll take it right before I sleep and I lay down and I'm wide awake. What's going on here? Isn't this supposed to help me make me sleep? And then I take it 2 hours. The next day I take it 2 hours before. I'm out like a baby. Take a little extra, I'm wired. Take a lot less, sleep like a baby. So it's very interesting. I think these receptors, they regulate your mood and your body and your immune system. So all of that plays a factor as well.
What is there a right way to take it? And does that affect how much your body absorbs? Because I've been told to put it on my tongue, like you said, or underneath your tongue, like you said. I've been told to put it in a smoothie in the morning. Is that going to affect what benefits you get from it? So
usually they tell you to put it underneath your tongue because there's a blood vessel there, and it gets in through your bloodstream through the blood vessel, and you can leave it there for, if you really wanted to, you can leave it on there for about 10 minutes. I'm not saying you need to do that, but you can for better absorption. Bioavailability is going to be a word that you start to see quite often as we move forward with CBD absorption. Bioavailability is, if you eat, say, a CBD chocolate, it needs to go through your body and through your liver, and it takes time. It's like eating a marijuana cookie, right? You don't know when that thing's going to hit you. You can be sitting there I didn't do anything. And you eat some more, and then next thing you know, you're glued to the couch, and you're call the police. But if you smoke a joint, it comes on quick and fast. So bioavailability will be a huge thing going forward. The second part of your question is putting it with smoothies is interesting because it can there's adaptogens. So I don't know if you kind of heard if you smoke weed and you have a mango, it actually enhances your high. It's actually because there's terpenes in mangoes, and that terpene will actually modulate and do an entourage effect.
Interesting.
And synergistically, you'll have this interesting effect. Try taking CBD with some cacao and see how you feel. I've had a chance to try our chocolates, and they get you a little bit giddy. You're like a little grin on your face. You're like, what's going on? And and it's the cacao and your endogenous cannabinoid system playing together and synergistically. It's these neural pathways are firing off, and you're just like, oh, okay, hey, I feel good. So here's something cool. When you go for a run, and afterwards, after your run, you kind of have this thing called the runner's high. And they always thought that was adrenaline, endorphins. It's actually your endocannabinoid system. The runner's high is your cannabinoid system being stimulated.
So it's not endorphins.
There's probably endorphins and adrenaline as well, but the endocannabinoid system is actually the main runner's high. That's actually what's triggering your high.
So it'd be like taking a CBD hit?
Now, if you get a CBD vape pen and you take I wish I brought some here. I don't have them here, but I've had a chance to try those, and they instantly put a smile on your face.
I had one 2 days ago, and you do feel it.
Yeah,
But it was a 1-to-1. So I guess 1 milligram THC to CBD.
CBD. Okay.
Is that normal or is that high?
I would say it depends. That's a lot of THC in my opinion. But so what's something very unique about the company that I work with is we have a broad spectrum. So we don't have any THC in it, but we have 4 different cannabinoids in it. So we have CBD, CBDV, THCV, and CBG in our formula. And THCV, is kind of that antagonist to THC, kind of curbs your appetite, but it can also give you this euphoric, short bursts of euphoria with mental clarity and energy. And for me, the best way to describe it is tunnel vision with clarity. It was funny. I had someone try it, and we went for dinner, and we're sitting at the table, and we're at a round table, and there's 10 of us. And the female that tried it, she goes, I can hear everyone's conversation right now. And I'm just like, what? And I'm like, and I've had that feeling. So it's this short burst of mental clarity. And she's like, I'm talking to you, but I can understand that there's 3 other conversations happening here. And I'm like, that's the THCV. Like,
Is that psychoactive?
There's a few reports saying that it is psychoactive, and then there's other reports saying that it's not psychoactive. I personally think it's more euphoric. Like you take 5 Tylenols, you're going to get something. You're going to feel something, right? So I think it's similar to that. There's not enough studies done to really clearly indicate whether it's psychoactive or not. Personally, I think it's more euphoric. And then the one study that came out in the UK it's a very small study, and they've deemed it psychoactive, but the efficacy is very limited. I personally don't. We'll know eventually, but right now I don't think it is.
If you take CBD and then go for a run, does that exemplify the?
I know people who take it before workout and after workout. Some people, my brother, for example, he'll take it a very, very small amount, probably 1 or 2 mg, and he gets some energy, like a pre-workout, and then goes to the gym. Personally, myself, I like taking it afterwards because for me, it starts the recovery phase.
Okay.
So I'm ready trying to, let the body heal. So everyone's a little bit different. I know people who take it and they're like, I feel a little bit mellow. It gets you really calm. So maybe that's not what you're looking for when you're in the gym. But as we get further down this path with different cannabinoids and terpenes, there's going to be profiles like right now they're in the States, you can get, CBD calm, CBD relief, CBD energy, but they're using adaptogens. For sleep is usually melatonin. Energy, they'll put ashwagandha or whatever. They'll put in turmeric for pain relief, additional pain relief. But, wait till we really start unlocking what each one of these cannabinoids can do as a therapeutic benefit. That's where things will get exciting, let alone adding adaptogens and modulators, because you can modulate your receptors. For example, with cacao, people eat chocolate, you feel happy. You're like, I feel good. Take it with CBD, you're like, okay, like something's going on here, like something's happening. So it's really, really cool.
I understand you're not a scientist, but can you give us a little bit of background or a simple background on like what it does to your brain?
Sure. So we all have an endocannabinoid system in our bodies. It wasn't really recently discovered until the 80s. And we naturally produce cannabinoids in our system. And I personally think that maybe we're deficient or they're not being stimulated in the right way. There's other things you can do to stimulate your endocannabinoid system. You can take hot and cold baths. That's shown to stimulate your endocannabinoid system. Cryotherapy. You go and Google cryotherapy and cannabinoids. It's amazing. There's actually research and science behind it. Breast milk is an abundant of cannabinoids.
Interesting. Wow.
And one of the studies I read about that was babies, when they have breast milk, it stimulates the suckling. So it actually makes them want to have more breast milk. That one cannabinoid initiates that receptor. It's really, really interesting. So the way, as we have this system, the endocannabinoid system in our bodies, which connects to every single cell tissue in our body. It connects through our spinal cord, through our brain, to everything, your toes, to your fingers, to your mood swings, to every single thing you can think of, and directly connects to our central nervous system, our peripheral nervous system. This is how these receptors work, the neurotransmitters work. Now, when you take CBD, what it does is it's a spike. You're getting it directly. And I kind of told you about that lock and key analogy. So if you have pain, for example, your body is telling you your brain is telling you, hey, there's pain here. Okay. Like, boom, like you got pain. Now, if you take CBD, the studies have shown is it binds with that receptor and it blocks that receptor. So it doesn't allow you to feel that pain anymore. And there's a word that's going to be called, you're going to hear a lot. It's called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is basically, the stimulus of everything that's happening in your body. If it's how we have anxiety or stress. It's every single thing that you can think of how the body operates and moves. And that's why when you take CBD, it works with these receptors in a sense where I gotta dial it back now. I'm gonna confuse myself. So with the receptors itself, they work as a lock and key mechanism. The brain is so complex where we're I don't even know how many trillions of little receptors that are firing off. And one of the studies I read, they stated like it can get corrupt. And as we're all wired, CBD acts as that lock and key mechanism and finds that lock and finds the key for the lock and unlocks it and allows the neural pathways to work as intended. And really what it does is it brings your body back to homeostasis. And homeostasis is, a form of healing. And one of my colleagues is the best way he explains it. He's like, it's kind of like meditation in a bottle. and everyone does meditation. And there's scientific research that meditation helps. And you can heal through meditation. So it's very similar to how that works. Just allows the body, it takes your brain out of the equation, just lets the body do what it needs to do to heal. And you don't have to take CBD. You can do a lot of other things by staying healthy, by staying fit, by having your posture good, by getting enough sleep, giving yourself the right, tools to always be the best that you can be. I hope that kind of explains it. It's very complex, but as we get more data, more research, I think, and some infographics, it'll be a lot easier to digest.
And there's no side effects? Proven side effects other than drowsiness? Yeah,
I would say, I don't think you want to say no side effects. The World Health Organization has a great report on it. From what I've seen, the only side effect I've seen is you might get a little bit tired, you might get a little bit drowsy, and usually what that means, your body telling you that you're not getting enough rest. That's usually what it means. So your body is already going into the homeostasis mode and telling you, hey, like you need to heal. An amazing example was one of my friends. He was an amazing basketball player. He was actually the number one ranked basketball player in BC. And
who's that?
His name's Mindy. So actually, the guy I was talking about.
He was? How old is he?
He's a
Carl
young guy.
and I both played provincial team.
Okay, he's a young chap. He's only 21 or 22 right now.
Do you know him?
Mindy Minhas?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because Carl coaches high school basketball now, too.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Sweet. Small world. So his story is very interesting. And after winning the provincial champions, 2 weeks later, he got diagnosed with colitis. And, he went through a roller coaster and battled really, really hard. Was basically unable to play basketball and a really dark time for him. And he actually overcome it. And I'd rather have you have him here and let him explain his story. But one piece that I wanted to get to is, so CBD saved his life. It literally saved his life. And when he first started taking it, he said that he felt a cooling sensation in the area where he had pain. And it was interesting because in my head, I'm like, it's the healing process. Like it's starting to heal. And I've gotten that from other people too that have had colitis where they go, hey, like I took it, but I kind of got this tingling and cold sensation. They kind of got afraid. And even myself, I didn't really know at that time. It was so early. And now that I'm starting to get more and more anecdotal evidence, I'm just like, oh, like it's actually you're healing. Like it's crazy to think. And some people get really, really tired because the healing process can take a lot out of you. And so they're like, hey, I get really tired. I'm like, take it before you sleep then. So, you should really, Mindy's a great guy. And he has an amazing story to tell himself. I'll definitely connect you to. And
I'd love to.
Yeah.
How long does a dose last? And how long should you take it for? You mentioned that you like taking it like a month at a time and then taking a few days off.
Yeah, for myself, everyone's a little bit different. The half-life, I believe, is 5 days. But people who kind of feel the effects of CBD say it wears off anywhere from 8 hours to 36 hours.
Okay. Wow.
But the half-life is about 5 days. But generally speaking, if you do feel anything, it's a short 3 to 6 hour kind of span. And then really, like once you get back to where you're at, it's not something that you're like, oh, I gotta take this. Like there's days I go without it for weeks. Some days I notice it, some days I don't. But I got like my whole family on it, my brother, my mom, my dad, I have my dog on it. So, and there's personally, I don't think there's any wrong time to take it. You have to understand how your body works and how it operates and find out when's the best time for you to take it. Whether if you have, day-to-day anxiety or a very stressful job, you can take it before you go to work. If you need it I think there was a study done where they did a double-blind test with, I think 80 individuals where they had them do just like a Toastmaster. So they got in front and a lot of them had anxiety. So they did a double-blind test, and I think it was a pretty high number. Either it was 40 or 60% noticed a significant boost in confidence while speaking in front of people.
Interesting.
Yeah. And for myself, I think after taking it for about a month, I remember telling people, I'm like, put me in front of 1,000 people. I can go in front of 1,000 people right now and I can go and talk to them. So it's amazing how everyone reacts a little bit differently. Some people may take a little bit of time. And if I've also noticed that if you have, say, arthritis, anxiety, and depression, I've noticed that it kind of works towards the worst kind of ailment you have. And then it'll kind of progressively work on the other things. Very anecdotal there, but yeah.
Do you think it has something to do almost with like mentally what you're thinking? You're thinking, oh, depression is the worst thing that I suffer from. Arthritis is just starting. It's not that bad, but I do feel it. Do you think that has something to do mentally? Because obviously it's not the drug, it's not the CBD in your body saying, oh, I understand that this person, Cindy, is suffering from depression. I'm going to work on that first.
That's a good point. I think the body and mind is so powerful, man. You look at like athletes who manifest winning an NBA championship. Their study have shown that if you manifest something, even manifest cancer, I think you can. The mind is so powerful. You can do crazy things with it. So manifestation definitely plays a part, but you want to use that as a positive manifestation. So if you're like, hey, I have anxiety and depression, instead of burying it deep, like don't think of CBD as a cure or an aid. It just mediates. You still have to find the root cause of what's happening. That's the way I see it. Sure, professional athletes can use it for anti-inflammation, but ultimately the mind, you have to master your own mind and understand what's making or causing you to feel this emotion or anxiety or depression, or whether it's, I think a lot of kids go through a rough time, and it's starting to show that, I can't remember, I think they were saying from 5 to the age of 5 or 11, really can mold your brain as a child to grow up and have anxiety or depression.
Sorry, you made a good point there. I wanted to read it down.
Yeah, no worries.
Who should take it?
Who should take
everyone
it?
try it and see what it does for them? Should it be someone who's experiencing some sort of pain or anxiety, or should you wait till you have an ailment to try it?
All very good, valid questions. Personally, I think the people who should take it are individuals who are taking prescription pills and literally damaging their bodies and organs and falling into an opiate crisis when there are other alternatives. When traditional methods aren't working, and your doctors and physicians who have been guided to tell you, take this, they don't teach you preventative maintenance.
Right.
In my opinion, those people should be the first. So I have some friends in Denver, Colorado, who started the first dispensaries out there, and as they've evolved since legalizing cannabis, your average user age demographic is 45 years old.
Wow.
It's not 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's not 30-year-olds. It's 45-year-olds, because they have either some anxiety or some depression or some joint pain. So I think as this market matures, we're going to start seeing that we're not sure, everyone is the audience, but majority of the audience are individuals who are kind of getting a little bit older, who are starting to have that back pain. Maybe as we get down further with research, sure, athletes will start using it for, whether it helps with endurance or recovery or sleep. There is a cannabinoid, not a naturally found cannabinoid in a plant, actually the degradation of THC. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take one more too. Yeah, why not? Thank you. So there's actually a cannabinoid called CBN, and it's actually the degradation. CBN is the degradation of THC.
Oh.
And what that does, it's actually it's a natural sedative. So I that's going to be really, really cool to see as we start getting abundance of it. And it's actually not that hard to convert it from THC to CBN.
Does this happen in your body or no?
No, it's not I don't think it's an actual natural occurring, don't confirm me on it, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't naturally produce in your body, nor does it naturally produce in a plant. It's the degradation of THC. So if you ever have sleeping issues, if you wanted to, you could take some marijuana and put it in the sun, leave it there for about a full 12 hours, and let the THC degrade. Smoke it and see how fast you fall asleep.
Really?
Yeah. So that's stuff like that is really, really cool. And I'm just like, what's one of the biggest problems when people travel? It's jet lag and get in a hotel and you're business class, whatever, and you're like, I can't sleep. Imagine if they offered a beverage that had CBN in it, and you're like, crack it open, and boom, you're out, and it's all natural.
And so many people suffer from lack of sleep.
Yeah,
and it just leads to so many problems, right?
Yeah.
Is there anywhere to get that right now?
I've seen some companies in the United States. In Canada, no. Yeah, Canada, we're very limited for anything, really, as you can see. But they're opening the doors here for topicals and edibles, I think in October. But they're starting something new called CHAP, Cannabis Health Approved something. I don't know exactly what it is, but they're starting a new governing body just on topicals. However, in the States, with it being a wild, wild west, it's easier to find some of these. You can find in almost anything. But there is a company out there that I'm aware of that does have CBN and some high CBN formulas. I haven't had a chance to try it. Actually, I was talking to a friend who's in the States, and he's like, hey, I have some CBN shots. I want you to try it out. I just don't think we're going to ship it across the border because that's not allowed. So, so next time I'm in the States or something, I'll hang out with them and I'll give it a whirl. I don't know what's going to happen. Like I've never tried it before. I don't know if I'm just going to fall asleep or.
But the claim to fame is that it makes you drowsy, helps you sleep.
It's a natural sedative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are doctors starting to come on board?
They should.
Are they though?
They are.
Or is it just going to be one of those things that takes time?
I've spoken to some doctors, friends who are intrigued. You got to keep in mind that not to knock any shade on doctors. They're great. They're wonderful people. They do amazing things. But they also, they spend 3 hours learning on nutrition out of their full 8 years of learning how becoming a doctor.
Is that all?
3 hours. That's it.
That's
they get
crazy.
3 hours of education on nutrition. All right. So I think a lot of doctors understand and have recommended. I personally know doctors who have recommended cannabis to some of their patients, and they will come along. Personally, if your doctor tells you don't use cannabis, go see a different doctor. Because I don't think that's valid. I don't think that's not something that, especially with a country that's now legalized it and having medicinal cannabis, it does wonders. And whatever we can do to help people stop taking these vicious cycles of prescription pills, from anxiety, depression, to sleep, to whatever it is, and they just keep pushing you through the circle. Oxycontins. They don't even announce it in our news anymore for how many kids are dying of overdoses. That's how many kids are dying from fentanyl and Oxycontin deaths. They don't even announce it in the news because it's that many. So whatever we can do to help, and if you think cannabis is still a drug, then so be it. That it will take a little bit of time, but we'll get the message across, and we'll do it right with the help of the government as we kind of progress with this legalization, and doctors. We'll get there. I think everyone will come on board. It'll just take a little bit of time.
What's the biggest hurdle? Why are people so against trying it out? Is it lack of research? Is it just the stigma?
I think it's majority of it is stigma. It's those campaigns that have been infused in people's brains since the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard to break habits. It's very, very difficult. We live in some of the greatest times, and with social media and trending topics now, and cannabis is huge. Like, go on Instagram, you'll see Dan Bilzerian and all his girls out there smoking and Ignite, CBD pens, and there's some really good partnerships coming out with cannabis. So I think it's the older generation that has a little bit tougher time. I know my parents did,
Mm-hmm.
even my grandparents. But when you start educating them, telling them that like this is an old plant, it's been around, like in our culture, Ayurvedic medicine has been around for how many years? Tibetan medicine has been around for how many years? Cannabis has been around for the same amount of time, and it's been used for medicinal purposes. I think in the 1920s, doctors actually, this is the truth, before Reefer Madness and all those campaigns started, cannabis was prescribed by pharmacists and doctors to help with joint pain. You can go to, I think in Spain and in Amsterdam, they have these old museums of cannabis. Like, you can go and see these big brown tinctures, and it says cannabis, and it literally was used as medicine. So unfortunately, it took us almost 100 years, but we're making a full circle and we're coming back. So it's really cool to, and I talked to guys who have been hemp and cannabis advocates for 50 years. So I'm glad that they can see this transition in their lifetime.
Mm.
Yeah. So
what do people not know? What should people know about it? That's a pretty broad question.
Yeah, I guess the biggest stigma is, for sure, hey, is it addicted?
Mm-hmm.
Is it addicting? Am I gonna turn into a junkie? Like they people thought it was a gateway drug, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say cannabis is or not a gateway drug, but alcohol is definitely a much bigger precursor to trying other drugs than cannabis. and I think it's just been the stigma and the years and years of marketing habits from whether it's the biggest lobbyists are big pharma, alcohol, and tobacco companies. They're the ones who have been lobbying the government and spending millions of dollars and making sure that cannabis remains illegal. And now that it's slowly coming to fruition and it's coming around, and not just in Canada or America, but globally, guess who's transitioning faster than anyone else? Alcohol and tobacco companies, right? So it's the system. The system makes it difficult. It's always about money and power and greed and all that. The powers that be kind of control stuff. So, even now, one of the biggest commercials I keep seeing right now is "Don't drive and get high," and they're spending so much money on that campaign. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I get it. Don't drive and don't drive and get high. Actually, funny that I mentioned that. I don't know if you guys read. UBC just did a 5-year-long study on whether consuming cannabis and driving actually affects you, and it turns out that they couldn't come to a conclusive answer. Yeah, wow. They couldn't.
5-year study and no answer. Yeah.
With all the accidents and checked out. I'll have to send you a link to it. So, and I've even seen something way back when, I think it's still on YouTube, where they had people actually smoke marijuana and made them go through these driving tests, and some people would just straight up fail. But then there was a good chunk of people that just drove better, right?
Because they were relaxed.
They were just focused. You were just more aware. You're like, oh, I don't want to crash.
Like that tunnel vision thing you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So it was really
probably vary based on the strain as well.
No, I think it was just that was just, I think, THC, just like some marijuana as a whole. And UBC just came out with this study just as of late, and they were just like, apparently it may not affect your motor driving skills. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's pretty cool. And even now, I don't even know how they're testing for it. They're using some beta pilot testing here locally where I think they make you blow into something, and I really don't know, because I know people who smoke weed and they're high for days. I know people who some people are really sensitive to marijuana, and they actually, because it stays in your system for 30 plus days.
How would that blowing thing work with edibles?
I don't know if they're checking like I think ultimately at one point they're like, we want to be able to take a blood test from right there, and it's
that's so ridiculous.
That's so crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like what are our rights? So yeah, I don't know how they're going to really combat that, but I don't know. It's just funny to me. We'll get there eventually, I guess. I don't know. So
this is more a curiosity thing, and I don't know if you know the answer or not, but how does cannabis mix with alcohol?
I've done it. It's not good. I personally don't think it's a good thing to do. I don't kind of see like alcohol as an upper and cannabis kind of as a downer. You get them together, it mess you up a little bit. But I don't know, sometimes you have a couple of beers and you might smoke a joint and you're like, hey, I kind of feel really good right now. You smoke a little bit too much, you get the spins and you forget to breathe, and you're like, okay, this is not fun anymore. So I personally, I think it's best to have them separate. It's kind of funny. My dad used to, I used to smoke a lot, and now I've stopped, and I frequent here and there, and I actually smoke a lot less. Personally, I actually get anxiety from now. I think it's too damn strong. Like I can't keep up with it. And my dad used to always tell me, he's like, if you're gonna smoke, don't drink. But if you're gonna drink, don't smoke. Like, don't do them together, right? And I'm just like, okay, Dad, thanks for the solid advice. I don't know the research behind it, but the United States went crazy where they started putting CBD in cocktails, food, and everything, because it binds, and it does cause some additional reactions. But personally, I don't think you should be taking it with cannabis. Anecdotally, though, for hangovers, CBD has done some interesting things for some of my friends. It's like, hey man, I had a hangover. I took some of your CBD and I don't have a hangover anymore. I'm like, all right, man, just good to know, right? So, and that's just, and it gets crazy because I feel like THCV and alcohol does not like each other. Versus CBD and alcohol, sure, people are doing it in the States and people are still doing it. I use CBD for the therapeutic benefits that it should be used for. Don't try to supplement it with like, oh, I'm going to go drink my face off, so that way in the morning I can just take CBD and not have a hangover. That's not how you want to live your life.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good.
The goal is to get healthy, not to drink your face off, right? So,
can we talk a little bit about the business that you're working with now?
Sure. So the company's name is Blue Sky Biologicals. I actually met the CEO through Mindy, and we just kind of had one discussion, and one discussion led to another, and we just started kind of vibing. And I was off work at that time, and he got to know a little bit more about my background, IT background, and entrepreneurial stuff that I had done from digital marketing to e-commerce. And it just so happened at that time, he, as the company was, very, very small, I think there was less than 5 employees at that time, and they were still figuring out the business model. I woke up to a text one morning, and it was literally woke up and it said, "Hey, Abby, how do you feel about running my whole online operation?" I was like, "What?" And at this time, I think I had known him for maybe 4 months, and we had a lot of discussions back and forth and about a lot of other things. And ultimately, I wanted this. I did want to get in the business and use my skill sets in the cannabis space, let alone CBD. And one thing led to another. I the scope of it was quite vast and large, and I told him, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to have to get some backup here. I need someone to help me with everything that needs to be done." He's like, yeah, no problem. And one thing led to another, and it spiraled off. And as the team kind of grew, I think it's been a year now, and we're launching globally in the US, UK, Europe, and Asia. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions, a lot of fun, a lot of struggles, but learning lots. Everyone's learning in this industry. Everyone is technically a startup in a whole new industry, in my opinion. Even Canopy, the largest guys, Canopy Growth, are sure they're the biggest in the cannabis space, but as I don't know if you guys heard, they just fired their CEO.
Did they?
Yeah, yesterday they fired their CEO. So this industry is very interesting. It's not as big as you think. Everyone's very interconnected, but it's also quite a wild, wild west right now. And everyone's on their tippy toes. Everyone, things are changing so fast on a day-to-day basis. And that's state by state in the United States, globally in every country, and even Canada. There's just the other day, they introduced this new CHAP thing, which is a new governing body. My expertise is I like to stay on top of the markets and look at a competition. We're launched in the United States right now. We just launched with 6 tinctures. Our capsules are on board.
6
different tinctures.
Okay.
So it's different strengths, 250 mg all the way up to 1,000. And then we have 3 same strength, but infused with supercritical CO2, turmeric, and rosemary extracts. Rosemary is a super powerful antioxidant, turmeric anti-inflammatory properties. So we've had some really good feedback from our consumers on those. And then we got some capsules that are on the way. We have some chocolates. Chocolates are being made in Peru with Peruvian cacao. So I've had a chance to try them. They're amazing. We have some vape pens. Beverages will be coming. And then, we have a whole cosmetic care and pet care. So that's kind of on the roadmap for the end of the year. So there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, a lot of relationships in the horizon, and just the team. The team's very, very powerful. So I'm very excited. I'm very passionate about it. I left my financial career for this, and it's been a lot of fun. The journey has been great.
Do you guys deal strictly in CBD product?
Yes.
Okay.
We're strictly hemp and CBD cannabinoids. That's kind of our focus at the moment, and probably will be our core focus will be on ingestibles, cosmetic, topicals, and pet care.
And the reason for not selling in Canada is because of all this crazy legislation that they have.
There's a few things. You have to be a licensed producer. You have to have your hemp farms, or your hemp farms have to be here. You got to go through a lot of loops and holes, and you got to spend a lot of money. And Canada's a small market. Totally. We're a small market. Sure, we got a leading head start on getting obviously legalization, but ultimately there's bigger markets out there. The UK and Europe is I think pushing really, really fast in the cannabis space, specifically in hemp and CBD. And then Asia's half the world's population's out there, so that's a huge market as well.
Do you know much about the manufacturing process?
I do. The extraction is done. There's two ways of how the extraction happens. It's usually either through CO2 extraction or ethanol-based extraction. There's tons of pros and cons using either or. Ethanol is more efficient. However, it's a little bit more difficult to make sure you get more of a pure extraction, I guess you could say, where CO2 is always more consistent and always more pure with the potency levels and getting all and I think you retain more of the terpenes, I believe. But ultimately, ethanol, I think from a scalability side, is much better. Yeah.
And where is your growth done that you guys use?
Yeah, so our hemp is actually sourced from southern China in the province of Yunnan. They call it Nature's Garden. And the reason why that part of our joint venture is with China in southern Yunnan is because their culture. China has the longest relationship with hemp. It goes back 5,000 plus years. They've been using industrial hemp for much longer than any other country in the world. Some of the oldest records show that cannabis was used in China and found in China. Their first strains were kind of found in China. So they have some amazing genetics, and they have lots of research behind it. And the partnership between the two companies just made sense. And that's something that my CEO can definitely speak more to. But that was kind of one of the main directions leading to Blue Sky kind of going and really coming out with something very unique compared to what everyone else has. I don't think there's anything else on the market actually today that has our formula. So personally, I think the future of CBD is going to be innovation and research. Like I said, there's 10,000 brands out there. How do you know which one to pick? There's full spectrum. Sure, full spectrum is the whole plant, which is everything. They don't actually take anything out. Then there's something called broad spectrum, which is the whole plant minus THC. And then there's isolate. So they just isolate a single compound, which is, whether it's CBD or THC or whatnot. What
makes your guys' unique? Obviously not like the formula, but what affects what's different about yours than the other 10,000 brands?
Sure. So I think if you compare us to other full spectrum brands, and
is yours full spectrum?
We were calling it full spectrum, but the industry has decided to call it broad spectrum because there's no THC in it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there's no governing body that said, hey, this is what it's got to be. It's just what the industry has decided to call it. So we're actually a broad spectrum, which means we're the whole plant minus THC. So there's no THC in our products.
And all 6 of the
every single one of our products is broad spectrum.
Okay.
We kind of like to call ourselves a multi-cannabinoid complex. And what really differentiates us from any other player, and I've looked at hundreds of COAs, which are certificate of analysis of all these other companies. You get a report done by a third-party lab, and they'll run it and do potency tests, check for solvents and pesticides and chemicals and so forth. What I've noticed is majority of the companies that have kind of a broad spectrum or full spectrum, they have about 90 to 95% of CBD in their products and about 5 to 10% of these other cannabinoids.
Okay.
Where we have 70% CBD and 30% of these other cannabinoids. Very rare and hard to find in specific strains. And then that's kind of the core side to it, but there's more than just that. There's also the extraction and hemp geneticists get involved, and there's all this other sciencey stuff that I'm not too familiar with. But
are the formulas public knowledge?
Yeah. So you can.
It's just the extraction process that is obviously unique to your company, maybe? Or what makes it so different?
It's the proprietary genetics is what really makes our formula different, is having that kind of that 70-30 ratio. And I know that we have additional cannabinoids coming down the pipeline. As this industry grows, you're going to see it go from 4 cannabinoids to 8, 12. You want the whole plant. You want to get the full benefits of the whole plant. So what really makes us unique is that kind of that ratio is that 70-30. So, you look at other companies, I think we have about 80 times more than any other company that has THCV. We have about 52 times more CBDV than any other company. And our CBG levels, I think about 5 times more, 5 to 10 times more, depending on how you look at it. So that's what really differentiates us. It's the potency levels of these other rare cannabinoids that are up and coming. They're new, buzzing, and trending. One thing that's going to be huge is, and I already see people marketing, is they're skinny weed, and there's specific strains, marijuana strains, like Durban Poison. The other one, Durban Poison was one, and they're high THCV strains.
They're hilarious names, eh?
Oh, they're getting crazy. There's one called horny goat weed now, and I don't know. I've never tried it, but there's probably some strain that's probably like a natural stimulant for like Viagra. I wouldn't doubt it. I bet there's a cannabinoid out there that could be a natural Viagra. I wouldn't doubt it.
Carl, let's do some Googling. Let's find it.
Yeah. So and those strains like that are high, that have high THCV presence, they're expensive. You want to buy one of those clones, $100,000. You want to buy, just to give you a rough example, if you want to buy a kilo of CBD isolate in the States right now, so this is the crazy thing about the United States. You can go and buy a kilo of it. It's legal, I guess you could say. So you can go buy a kilo of this CBD isolate that costs you, anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000. And you go on the internet and you're like, how do I make a topical? And it's not that hard. And then you can go make your own brand, put it up on your e-commerce platform, and now you're selling a CBD product. And the scary thing is, some of them don't have lab reports. So now you don't know what you're getting, because there was a company that had an independent study, got a bunch of 30 different products. 66% of them didn't even have CBD in them, and they were marketing it like they did. And I think that company did in New York, and that was in New York. So that's where regulations need to come into play, right? Like, last thing you need is someone putting fentanyl in it, or someone putting some foreign substance, or whatever it is. But
is there anything for a consumer to look for that says like this is an actual product that's been tested?
Yeah. So what I would recommend for anyone, I don't know if we actually have this in Canada, but what they're doing in the States, and this should be the standard policy, I think, I guess in Canada, because it's heavily regulated and you have to buy through, proper channels, you can be a bit more safe, for yourself. Like, okay, I know I'm getting a clean product. I think they have to go through all those stringent processes already. So in the States, what's happening now is some of the larger companies like Charlotte's Web and Elixinol, and what they're doing is they're putting a QR code on their products, each product SKU. And what you do is you scan that QR code. And what it does is it directly links to that lab report. So that way you can see, hey, there's no chemicals, there's no pesticides, there's no solvents, so you feel safe. So that's kind of, I think, where the industry is going to go towards. And that's what we're doing. We're going to make sure that we always be as transparent as possible. There's everyone's like, oh, you guys are getting it from China. Like, and it's like, well, hey, we have videos of our farms. We have lab reports. We get multiple lab reports done. We're working with universities in Canada. We're making sure that we're taking all the right precautions. There's a lot of fake stuff coming out of China, but, Same time, tell me something that's not Chinese from China in your household, right? Or from Walmart or Superstore, whatever it is. Yeah. And it's funny because originally when I came to, I was like, hey, like we got to get in front of this. You can't get behind this. Like you gotta come up front and say, yeah, we source from China. Yeah, we work with a company that's got a legal license out there. Yes, we do our lab reports. Yes, we do all that. And there's a lot of, everyone's trying to say, oh yeah, U.S. grown soil. Weed grows anywhere. Weed's a weed. It grows in Nepal. It grows in any climate you can think of, we can grow. So there's a lot of stigma with a lot of different things, let alone just cannabis. And now it's like, well, where are you sourcing it from? It's fine. It all comes down to branding and how you market yourself and being transparent. I think that's the key thing is showing that, look, this is what we have. Here's the lab reports. Here are the independent tests, and letting people know that this is what you're getting.
Looking at the business side of the industry, it seems like it's become very popular in the last few years. Are you seeing that from investors as well? Is it pretty easy to find angel investors right now?
Yeah, I think it's slowing down a bit. Definitely in 2018 was wild west. People were selling companies for hundreds of millions of dollars on pre-revenue, on an idea. That's or insane. A relationship or a connection. Yeah. Not to keep bashing on Canopy, but Canopy is the largest market cap. They're the largest cannabis company out there, and their burn rate is $300 million a quarter right now. They're burning through $300 million every quarter, and the reason the CEO got fired is because their profits were only $232 million. And you can read all about it online, but it's I know guys who have been invested in early stages and they've cashed out and bought property and are like, yeah, I did well, thank you. Is there still time to make money in the cannabis place? Yes, for sure. Do your due diligence. Do your homework. I always tell people, whatever you're going to invest in, know what you're investing in. Don't ever put your money in something you don't even know about. I have a good background in cryptocurrency, and I've been involved since 2012. And I've been through crazy things in crypto space, from roller. Like I've never seen anything so volatile in my life. And when cannabis came to the market and it hit the stock markets, it went through the same stuff. Spiked up, spiked down, spiked back up, and it's just going to go through these market cycles.
We got to have a separate podcast with you on crypto.
Yeah, I'll bring another buddy down. That's a crazy story, man. It's the long story short, we just got, I reached out to a guy who started a YouTube channel, and he started a Discord channel. And next thing you know, we had to cap it at 5,000 members in under 3 months.
Wow. What?
And we were doing ICOs. We did, $30 million in under a year of ICOs by doing, we basically just had a bunch of analysts, and we just did our due diligence on all these companies. And it was crazy. It was, in 1 year, it was just like, whoa, like what happened? And when it was funny because as it went from 20 grand all the way down to 3 grand, I just so happened to get into cannabis space. So it just worked out perfectly. So now I'm involved in in my opinion, the two most emerging markets for the next decade.
Do you think crypto is one of the two biggest emerging markets?
Blockchain, I think is it's here to stay. It's not, people are like, maybe not Bitcoin. Bitcoin might not be the one, but blockchain is definitely a new technology that will be utilized in probably almost every industry you can think of.
I've heard probably a dozen people try to define blockchain, and no one can do it in a short amount of time. Do you have any quick summary of what is a blockchain?
It's a ledger. It's a ledger. Yeah, it's
Think
a ledger.
of an Excel spreadsheet. This is the last one I heard. Think of an Excel spreadsheet that is copied everywhere. And when someone adds something to it, it automatically goes everywhere. But it's also, I'm obviously paraphrasing because I don't understand what the fuck is happening. But it's also chopped up into millions of pieces, and it's everywhere. I'm like, okay, that does not make it all.
It's You're close. So imagine that Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's not essentially chopped up everywhere, but that Excel spreadsheet is on every computer. But you can't destroy it.
Right.
The only way to destroy blockchain and Bitcoin is by destroying the internet. You have to kill the internet to kill Bitcoin. That's the way I see it.
Is the biggest advantage of it decentralization?
Yes. You're your own bank. That was the whole purpose of it. Have you ever seen the Netflix documentary on Bitcoin, banking on Bitcoin?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
No,
Must watch.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Yeah. Banking on Bitcoin. It's a great documentary. It kind of, definitely there's about 2 hours. It's amazing. And they talk about the blockchain and how it works and infographics and ledgers and so forth. It's very simple when you understand it with like visuals, but
it's very simple. I've never heard anyone say simple.
It's very simple with visuals.
Okay.
When you say it with visuals. Yeah.
Coming back to cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you deal a lot with like the marketing IT side of your business.
Yeah.
What have been the barriers on that side in terms of getting the name out there?
Yeah, it's the limitations of advertising.
Sure.
You can't advertise on Facebook. You can't advertise on Instagram. You can't advertise through Google.
You can't.
You cannot.
Why is that?
That's a good question. Their policies state that you cannot advertise CBD, hemp, or any cannabis-related products. Why? It's probably some governing body or someone higher saying, nope, no, it's not allowed. I don't think you're even allowed to, on Facebook, I'm not sure if you can do alcohol. I feel like you can do alcohol, but maybe not tobacco. I'd have to go back and look at their policies.
I'm trying to think of just ads I've seen on my feeds. I think I've seen alcohol ads for sure.
I think maybe alcohol is allowed.
Maybe not
and you may
tobacco.
have seen cannabis because there's ways around it. You can cloak and there's gray areas or black hat methods to get around. You don't want to do that. It doesn't last. You're always playing. So, and that's changing now. I just heard the other day that Facebook is now allowing advertising for topicals, which I thought was very interesting. And the only reason I can think of that is because, CVS, Walgreens, and some of these other larger chain retail stores, basically they're like, we're not going to wait for the FDA. We're going to start putting this on the shelves. So now it's actually in about the 11 legal states in the United States have it on their shelves. So they're like glass cases and locked up, but I've seen it and you can actually go and buy topicals.
That's hilarious.
But Seattle's
It's in a glass case.
Yeah,
locked
I
up.
know.
It's like the $200 bottle of scotch at the liquor store. It's locked up.
So that's been our biggest barrier. And then you got to kind of have to use different methods, whether it's advertising on blog sites or health and wellness sites, and doing different types of campaigns. Using influencers is huge. Influencer marketing is massive, but I think we're kind of hitting critical mass on Instagram right now. I'm sick and tired of seeing people. I hate the word influencer. I just hate the word influencer.
Everyone's an influencer.
Hey, you're an influencer, right? It's so easy, I guess, and I'm not a huge fan of it. But if it's used right with the right ambassadors, it's good. You can get the right message out with the right research and the right education. So that's where I see the positivity of ambassadors and influencers.
What other platforms do you utilize influencers outside of social media?
I think social media is your biggest.
So influencers can post about cannabis, but you can't do directed ads.
Correct.
Okay.
Paid ads. You can't do paid ads. But
Gotcha.
you can get, like I think Kim Kardashian is talking about CBD.
Yeah. Anyone can post a photo of a CBD bottle.
Yeah. So YouTube is kind of a weird one. I've heard that you can't do it on YouTube as an influencer. So, but Instagram, they don't care. You can go wild.
And post a video on YouTube talking about your experience with a CBD.
You can talk
oil or
about
something?
your experience, but you can't say, "Hey, I tried this product. It's fantastic. Here's my code. Go get it." Like you can't. It's really, it's challenging. And I've got some good friends who have actually a good friend of mine now as I've known him for a couple of years now. And we've kind of connected. He runs one of the best, probably one of the top MMA YouTube channels out there, and he loves the product. He wants to get behind it. He's like, I can't do it because of the regulations. So once that changes, he'll come on board and try to get that education message out.
Is that changing?
I think it is. I'm seeing more and more YouTube videos of CBD like every day. Even influencers now are doing it. So I think it's just kind of, it's his baby. It's his main source of income, and that I don't want to jeopardize that. I would feel like an asshole if all of a sudden he's like, hey, my YouTube with 400,000 subscribers is gone. Like, what the heck? And I'm like, sorry, man. Like, so I don't want to do that. And from the marketing standpoint, we have our VP of marketing is he's got some really, really strong connections in the sports industries in the United States. So we'll definitely be leveraging him and working with some digital media companies to really get our brand awareness out and exposure. So
I would assume athletes would probably be a big.
They're the big ones. I can personally tell you that we have some professional hockey players on our product.
Cool.
One is going to be an ambassador. However, it's interesting. So CBD is now off USADA and WADA. So it's actually off the World Anti-Doping Agency and the United States Anti-Doping Agency. CBD is now off that list. So athletes can take it without any...
Is THC off the list?
THC is not off the list.
So you need to be careful of what's in the CBD bottle, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's even been some studies and reports showing that CBD can actually metastasis, I can't even say that word, can actually convert small amounts into THC.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's interesting what their liver can do. And so even if you're, everyone recommends that you take just a CBD isolate, but there has to be more data and research to see what's happening there, because I think it actually potentially can convert small amounts of CBD into THC.
I guess obviously that side of it, the compound side of it, the potentially testing for THC in a professional sport is one barrier for those types of people. Is there, I guess, would people be concerned about their image as well? Or is it that far gone now that
this is a great question. This topic is awesome. I love it because professional athletes smoke marijuana. NFL players, NBA players, and like they all do it.
What was
they all do it?
The running back for the Dolphins, Ricky
Williams.
Williams,
yeah.
right?
He was like probably one of the big first guys, right?
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Hey, like Allen Iverson, like all these guys, like you just Google it and you like Kevin Durant's like had medicinal cannabis like fall out of his pocket. You know what I mean? Like they're all taking it because they understand. Like, would you rather take ibuprofen or Tylenol? Would you rather just smoke a joint or take it? Give me the CBD. Like, it's better for me. It doesn't damage my liver. It's funny I mentioned that because Forbes, I think, just had an article saying that there was a study that they were referencing that CBD can show high toxicity levels in your liver. But the odd thing was they didn't say how much, and they didn't directly link to the study. And it's kind of like, okay, well, going back to Advil, like, well, what about Advil, aspirin, and Tylenol? Like, how bad is that for your liver? Have you ever ssee those reports? No, because you won't be able to find them because you can imagine who's keeping them suppressed, right? So, athletes are taking it. So back to that, like the NHL, THC is not allowed, but I was reading through the NHLPA, I think they were talking about how THC, they give a pass on it, but at certain levels. So like if you have too much THC, they're like, here, slap on the wrist, or I don't know. I really don't know, but you have more and more athletes talking about it, especially after they're retired. They're like, the reason why I played for 10 years was because of cannabis, right? Like, so I think it's just a matter of time. I just think that that's just too much at once for an NBA league or an NHL league to come out and just be like, yep, we're pro cannabis. Like, let's allow it. But there's other small, like, have you heard of the Big Three? The Big Three is a 3-on-3.
Yeah, so like the old school guys.
Yeah. So the Big Three is a huge advocate of CBD. Massive advocate of CBD. And that's an Olympic sport now. 3-on-3 is now,
really?
Yeah, it's now an Olympic sport. And they're huge advocates about CBD. They have like their board talking about, they're like, yeah, like we have, retired NBA players who want to continue playing basketball, but they have, some inflammation and pain, and we advise them to take CBD. So there have been some pretty big advocates of it. And you got Paul Pierce, who's actually got his own CBD line coming out. I actually had some contacts reach out because we were like, hey, like, can we get, let's talk a little bit. And then one of my contacts, actually through Mindy, his friend, reached out and he's like, yeah, Paul Pierce is starting his own line and he's going to be feeding it through the big league. And I was like, okay. And then it just came out to, I knew about that a long time ago, but now it just hit the public, so I can talk about it. So it's cool. As you see, the industry is getting involved, and ultimately the way I see the industry going is everyone will come on board slowly but surely. And I feel like big pharma will be the last. They'll come on board. They'll come on board, but they're gonna wait till things settle down and regulations are in place and all that, and then they'll come on board.
They have to think to like even survive. They need to start producing.
They're gonna make their billions one way or another.
Yeah.
They're gonna continue making their billions. They've got enough money to just purchase these companies.
Yeah, I guess so.
They're not gonna start vertically integrated cannabis grow shows or anything like that. They're just gonna come in and be like, we'll buy you, or we want an investment stake in you. That's how they operate.
I guess if you look at beer in the last 25 years in BC even, whereas like a Molson buys a Granville Island and like all these big breweries are buying small craft breweries just to kind of fit in with that
So
crowd,
it's exactly the same. Like
totally.
Canopy Growth got a $4 billion investment from Constellation Labs, who owns Corona and some other tequila brands.
Wow.
Alcohol and tobacco companies are getting involved. They already are involved, and they're going to keep getting involved further and further and deeper and deeper. I just had this thought come into my head. Is just a quickly side note. So the 11 states, this is what I love about data. The 11 states that have legalized cannabis now have already have data, actual live data, big data, showing that opiate deaths have decreased from states that have legalized cannabis. So, it's fantastic. Like you can start seeing the transition, let alone all the tax dollars they're making, improve their cities and states. So that's always been really fascinating to me, and it's just a very, very interesting industry. It's you're like, oh, everything's going great, we're moving forward, and then FDA will say something like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you like? Come on, right? Like the industry, it's a wild, wild west. And every day I wake up, I like roll over and grab my phone. I'm like, what's going on? Like something new, like get on Reddit, get on Weed Stocks or some other blog sites. And I'm just like, okay. So
is that a cause of anxiety? Waking up every morning and just having no idea what's going on?
No.
There's going to be something new.
No, and I don't, it doesn't cause anxiety. I look at it more as excitement now. Yeah, I don't unless my company's going down under, then it's a different story or something, but that's never been the case. I don't look at it as an anxiety. Even if United States decide to do something crazy and just go, hey, we're shutting this stuff down. Like everyone's shutting down. It's kind of one of the key reasons why we're not operating in Canada, because you can still operate in UK and Europe. You can still operate in Asia. You can still operate in other countries that are very, very pro cannabis. So yeah, I think Canopy's even stated that once. They're like, hey, if we're moving forward, whether the United States is getting involved or not, we're moving forward, because there's a lot of other countries that are like, hey, we're willing to work, and they're slowly coming on board globally. So
with like, let's say 10,000 plus different companies out there now, or it could be more, I don't know the numbers, but what's the competition for shelf space like?
That's a good question. Shelf space, depending on how you look at it, whether it's big box retailers, gas stations, e-commerce, it definitely varies on the vertical. Or
is it more e-commerce now?
It's 70% of sales are e-commerce.
Yeah.
However, I think we're going to see a transition as they start finally, because you couldn't get them anywhere else, right?
Exactly.
It was literally 100%, and now we're finally seeing that transition. So I think big box retailers are coming on board, and you're going to start seeing in CVS, Walgreens, Costco will have it, Walmart will have it, and we'll finally start to see a transition. It's kind of like cannabis, right? Like you don't want to. This guy bought his weed online, but you don't want to buy your weed online, right? Like you want to go and see it. You want to be able to feel it. You want to smell it, right? Like that's generally how you buy cannabis. Buying it online is kind of boring, and you're like, all right, well, I'll get it. And it's dry or wet. You're like, well, what did I get, man? Like, what's going on here? And I think it's the same with CBD, just because it's so new that, sure, it's not really a flower. Well, you can buy CBD flower too, but but it's so new that you need that education where you want to be able to go and pick up. There's that feeling of picking up and holding it in your hand, right? And so it's interesting. Out of the 10,000 brands, I personally believe 98 or 99% are going to die because there's nothing different from this guy's product to this guy's product. There's nothing different. It's going to come down to innovation and research. And then, sure, right now, what makes you different is what you're binding it with, whether it's hemp oil, coconut oil, turmeric, ashwagandha, and all that stuff, and all these nootropics. Okay, great. But it's going to come down to innovation and really the whole plant, who can extract the different cannabinoids, the different terpenes, and then the research and data. So in the future, we're going to go from 10,000, we're almost at critical mass. We're in the United States, we're reaching like too many brands. There's already too many brands, right? So like as they keep coming and it becomes the hottest topic and trending topic for the next, I would say we got about a 12 to 24 month window before we're going to start seeing it finally declining. Not sales, but declining of brands coming out. And then big box retailers are just coming on board. So that's a completely different thing. So it's funny. I've been in discussions and with our internal team and some of these big box retailers. And as they're coming on board, they're still learning. And they're like, wait, there's more than CBD? So, and then we got to educate them. And then they're like, okay, wait. And then the ones that are kind of more in depth, they go, we've never heard, like, okay, you guys are different. Like we need you on our shelves. And I've talked to some guys who've been in the space for a long time, just cannabis activists. And they're just like, hey man, like you guys have something special. Like I keep hearing it. And even from testimonials, they're like, hey, I've tried 10 different brands. You guys have something that works for me. You have something different. Let alone people who take THC and they're like, hey, I can't take THC anymore because it gives me anxiety. What that 1-to-1 ratio, it's quite bliss sometimes. It really lets you enjoy the high without any anxiety. And I the testimonials I've had for people going, hey, like I need THC to help with my pain. THC is very, very powerful. It's going to remain, and I personally think that when you take it synergistically or with other compounds, it does wonderful things. So when I hear testimonials of people going, hey man, like I couldn't smoke weed like I used to, and now I can smoke weed and reap all the benefits of that, whether it's psychoactive or bringing down my stress levels. But having CBD or our formula or blend with it, he said it's like heaven in a bottle. It's that perfect combination, I guess you could say. So I think what you're going to see is in the future is you can see a lot of brands going to die off because they're all the same. Big box retailers are going to bring up a lot of brands, and then they're going to slowly, selectively choose who they want to bring on. They're only going to they want the best too, right? Ultimately, you want to give the best to the consumer. The margins are more than enough for everyone to make. A bottle of CBD isolate is costing people $5 to $7, and they're charging $50. So you can imagine the profit margins are there.
That's what it costs you to produce?
Not us, but just the isolate.
Okay.
I can't tell you our cost, but it varies. It varies on so many different factors. But overall, as more people start growing hemp, we see more farms growing up, you're going to see the price come significantly down. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, the price will be about half, which is nice because the people who really need this stuff, they should be able to afford it. It shouldn't be something that's, hey, like I'm spending $100 a month. Like, how can I, so.
How much is it in Canada now, Carl?
It's expensive.
You can go up to like what, $14 a gram?
No, for CBD oil.
Oh, the stuff that I bought you was like $40, and that was like the lightest dose. Anything stronger would be like $80.
So that the stuff you bought for $40, do you know the total amount of CBD in that bottle by any chance?
Was it 20 mgs?
20 mg probably per dose, but then how many doses? I would imagine it's somewhere around like 250 mg to 500.
I was going to
mg.
say 250.
250 for $40, which is expensive.
Yeah.
Really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really expensive. Especially for people who really need it, who need to take higher dosages, especially individuals with chronic pain. They need quite a bit more.
When you're saying athletes taking 100 milligrams at a time,
they put their body through vigorous, training. Like MMA fighters, like look at their hands, look at their faces, right? Like the majority of them are taking painkillers afterwards, or they're taking something to bring down that inflammation. Would you rather take something that's harmful for you? Would you rather take something that's completely natural, whether it's a topical or, I don't know if it was Nate Diaz who really brought it to the table, right? He was smoking that vape pen with CBD and no one even knew what was happening. It was pretty funny. And I knew what was going on. I was like, oh, she's smoking vape. I'm like, I don't know if that's allowed in Vegas right now, right? And everyone thought it was THC and they were going to ban him and, risky move on him because look what happened to his brother. They made they tried to make a statement on him. They banned him for 5 years for smoking marijuana out of the UFC. And he was considered better than his brother, right? So
how did Joe Rogan let that happen?
I don't know. He just doesn't have enough say.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the industry will change, it'll evolve, and it will. I got to stay on top of it, and we adapt. Same as just as humans, we evolve. We'll evolve with the industry and try to stay on top of it. There's gonna be a fight. There's gonna be a fight. There's definitely gonna be a fight, and I know people have been fighting for 50 years, and I'm now joining the team, and I'm gonna fight too if I have to.
I say we got to do round 2 in like 6 to 12 months just to see what.
Oh, for sure.
How the game has changed so quickly.
It will in 3 months. I bet you anything. It's going to be crazy. But topicals are supposed to be coming on board in December. So yeah, in 6 months, yeah, for sure, I'll come through again. And there's so much. There's so much I'm learning every day. I'm learning every day. So
that's awesome, man.
Happy to pass the knowledge off.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, no worries, man. I can't wait to do it again.
From our initial conversation when you came in the door, you're a lot more knowledgeable than you let on. Don't ask me about the science. I'm not a scientist.
I think as I get more passionate about it, I spend a lot of my off time just researching and reading more. So
and just being involved every day, right? Surrounded by the best of the best in the industry.
Yeah, that helps. But what fuels me more than anything is the testimonials, man. Like there's people that have literally in tears, like you've changed my son's life. And it's like, that's what really helped. That's what fuels our company. That's what allows us to go out there and work 12 hours a day or 16-hour days or fly all over the world and meet with different government officials. That's what fuels us.
It's wicked. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited to try a different product. That one you bought me was shit, Carl. No, I'm just kidding.
I have no choice, man.
That's the only one allowed to be sold in BC right now.
That store's closed. So.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, that's from Weeds.
Oh. Is it going to be legal soon?
Hopefully.
Weeds just shut down in my neighborhood.
That's the one Carl went to.
The main street, they're done.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right.
Abby, thank you very much. It was great to meet you.
It was a pleasure, man.
It was a really fun chat.
Awesome. Can't wait to do it again.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Later.